Hello, hello, hello. How are we? Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hey, Virgo, how you doing? Worldwide drama again. Bro, you're so right. You're absolutely so right. How's everybody doing? Drop your likes. Let's know you're in the house. Yeah, I picked up something from my husband. I don't know, cold and cough. Why? Don't know why I was hanging around him. I should have just given him a wide berth. And now, on top of the hay fever, I've got God knows what, but I'm consoling myself with some popcorn. You know how I like to eat. Anyway, how's everybody doing? So far, this week has been one of those weeks. It has been one of those weeks. And I'm really looking forward to our chat in about 30 minutes with the Dr. Sabreena Gaffer Siddiqui. She's a badass, and we're going to have a great time with this conversation because she and I know how to be unfiltered and not really give a rat's ass what people think. So I'm really looking forward to that. Stay, drop your hellos, people. Let's know how you've been. Let's know you're in the house. Before we start our conversation and start to conversate, Virgo, you said tell me it all. I don't know anything that what's gonna you're about to find out. At least from this highlights. At least this time, was it 2 weeks ago? It was last week. I can't remember which day, which whether it was Tuesday or Thursday, that we left the live stream so heavy. I think we were talking about the kids that were molested and murdered. It was just so heavy. Today we're going to start light, and I think some of the things I'm going to be touching on will put a smile on your face because we deserve to have a smile on our faces right now. Honestly, it's just one of those days and one of those weeks that starts really well. So, people, don't forget to drop your likes and hello so I know you're in the house, and do join, our community of Dr. Shola Speaks. Don't forget, join our community and let's know you're out. Hey, Joel, how are you? Good to see you, Joel. So good to see you. Good to see you that you joined us. Hey, Nostradamus. I like your name. Oh, hey, all the way from Toronto, Canada. Good to see you. It's always wonderful to see you folks from all over. Honestly, it just tells me we're all experiencing the same thing. And it's fantastic when we can laugh about, same thing and be pissed off about the same thing, come together to think about what we can do to stop the madness. But let me start with something that's going to put a smile on you guys' face. Let me start with this. Donald Trump has been having a bad week. Yeah. He's having a bad week, and it's only freaking Tuesday. So let me start with this piece of news right here. Let me see if I can dig it up. So it turns out that the Supreme Court has denied Donald Trump.
The fact that it's wrong, the cost of birthright citizenship.
He's pissed off because the Supreme Court has denied his executive order to end birthright citizenship. We love to see it. It is only Tuesday, and Donald Trump is having a bad week. I swear to God, I'm here for it.
The cost, forgetting about the fact that it's wrong, the cost of birthright citizenship is barely not affordable by our country. It's going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's in their hands. What can I tell you? It's a common sense ruling. It's common sense. It was exact timing, and it's about the babies of slaves. Thank you for that question.
This dumbass. Honestly, Donald Trump has to be one of the biggest hypocritical gaslighting creatures on God's earth. He's talking about it costing a lot. He's talking about, this allowing birthright citizenship to cost something to the Americans, that it is a wrong decision by the Supreme Court, while he's literally opening up the floodgates for white South Africans to come into America. So that would mean that anybody white coming into South Africa, being given refugee status that they do not need, asylum status that they most definitely are not, can give birth to children in America, and they will get birthright citizenship because they're white. I think even the Supreme Court, as far as I'm concerned, this Supreme Court is deeply problematic. They can literally see that this ruling, his executive order, is racist. It's a racist executive order. It has no place. It has no place. It has no place. Basically, it's wrong. It's basically wrong. So I think that to me is good news. I think that the fact that the Supreme Court saw through the bullshit, and I'm actually quite surprised because I think that Donald Trump thought that because he has handpicked a number of them, and a number of these Supreme Court judges, as we know, are very Republican, incredibly conservative, and they do not do anything in the best interest of America as far as I'm concerned. He must be very surprised that they ruled against him. But that is not the only thing they ruled against. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not the only thing they ruled against him. So let me just, this cracked me up. This cracked me up right here. We love to see it. So basically, the Supreme Court has denied his appeal for sexual abuse. He was found liable for sexual abuse against E. Jean Carroll, where he's meant to pay $5 million, right? Now he has to pay the $5 million, okay? Now he has to pay the $5 million, and he is pissed off, and we love to see it. Let's read his rant here. He says, surprisingly, the Supreme Court declined to review a fake case brought against me by a woman I never met. Bullshit. Decades-old celebrity photo line standing with her husband does not count. I will continue the fight against this weaponization and lawfare case against me, including the ridiculous claim of defamation, with all of my power and strength. Honestly, Donald Trump is full of absolute bullshit. This guy, and we all know sexual abuse in this case, he actually raped her. It's rape. He did not sexually abuse her. He raped her. Before you all come at me with, oh, but actually, Dr. Shola, the courts really just found that it was sexual abuse. Nah, even the courts clarified. The judge in the court case clarified and said, yes, Trump was found to have raped E. Jean Carroll. You know what rape is? Penetration. He forcibly penetrated her vagina with his finger. That's freaking rape. End of story. There's no two ways about it. And so, like I said, he's not having a great week. And I think that for women around the world, including E. Jean Carroll, this is good news. It's absolute good news. Because men with power like Donald Trump must understand that they are not above the law. And they must be held accountable. And they did not believe him. The jury did not believe him. They believed her. And they also found him liable for defamation because he defamed her. So look, all I'm going to say to Donald Trump is freaking pay up. Okay, you're meant to be this billionaire. $5 million should be nothing to you. Pay the heck up and stop whining about it. Remember, this is the same man who said, remember this same man who said, grab them by the pussy? Watch this.
Anything grab. Say, and again, this has become very famous in this video. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. Just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything. That's what you said, correct?
Well, historically, that's true with stars.
It's true with stars that they can grab women by the pussy?
Well, if you look over the last million years, I guess that's been largely true. Not always, but largely true. Unfortunately.
This is the freaking problem with narcissistic, powerful men like these. Over a million years that you can grab women by the pussy. Is he even listening to himself? No, actually, I think he believes what just came out of his mouth. This is why he thinks he can rape women and sexually abuse them. This is why it's important that he's being held to account and he has to pay up. Pay up $5 million. He's now going to go down as the first president of the United States that is not only a convicted felon, is not only found liable for freaking rape, liable for freaking defamation, but an utter disgrace. An absolute, utter disgrace. But yet, Americans knew this and they voted him in. They knew this and they voted him in. What does that say about the American voting public? What does that say about American voters? This is the problem. Let's see. Nostra says the irony is that Israel has grabbed him by. Oh my God, you're so right. The irony is that Israel has grabbed Donald Trump by the freaking pussy. Yes, totally. No. Yes, I agree with you, Joel, that the American voting public that voted for him are brainwashed, but only to some extent. Because I think that those who vote for him want to be like him. They agree with what he's done. They don't see her as a victim. They blame her for whatever it is for everything he did to her. I mean, this is the reality. There are women who vote for men like Donald Trump who will blame women for being sexually abused, raped, violently attacked by men. There are women who do this, not to talk of men who support other men who do this. So I think that the bottom line here is this is the reality that we deal with. This is the new reality, and it makes no freaking sense to me. But I am glad to see that Donald Trump is having a bad week, and it's only freaking Tuesday. Long may it continue. Long may it continue. Joel says, pretty scary that there's so many that feel the same way as Trump. Exactly. And we've not even begun to even talk about the accusations from the Epstein files, which are many and which are so disgusting. We've not even begun to talk about that. I mean, it's something else. It's something else. So something else I wanted to touch on with you guys, because these people in South Africa, and God, please, Lord, give me strength. They are getting on my last God-given us. Hold on one second. I want to see whether I can find. Hold on one second. I thought I just put it up, or maybe it's because I can't. Let's see. Let's see if it's this one. So to give you some to give you a backdrop to this, basically today, 30th June, is the deadline that South Africans, the protesters, have given African migrants, documented and undocumented, to leave their country. You heard me. Yes. Today is the day they have given as a deadline for Africans, be them documented or undocumented, to leave their country. I mean, let me put some noise on that. Oh, you don't need to hear that now. Let me see if I can play this one. This is how disgusting.
Is it different because it's done by white people in London? When black people protest against other black people who don't respect their laws, it's suddenly xenophobia. It's the same thing that's happening in London, in Ireland, in America. Trump is doing it. No one is calling him xenophobic and all these names.
Actually, yes, we are. We are calling him racist. We're calling him xenophobic. We know exactly what it is. These are the same South Africans, mind you. Let me play this for you. These are the same South Africans that are so afraid of white Europeans and white Africans. They don't dare to tell them to leave. Watch this spectacle.
In almost 20 years.
Oh, you are part of us now. You are no longer a German.
Let me play that for you.
Since 2007, almost 20 years.
Oh, you are part of us now. You are no longer a German.
But I live in Cape Town, so I'm not.
Can you freaking believe that? She is from Germany, has been living in South Africa, benefiting from the white supremacy system that has deprived them of all of the benefits and rights that they're angry about, coupled with their corrupt government. But oh, she's welcome. She's been here 20 years. Oh, she's welcome. She's not an issue. Let me tell you how bad it is, because I saw this video earlier on this week. Earlier on today, actually. What am I talking about when I say earlier on this week? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. Of literally South Africans who are pulling out. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on.
You've seen, whether you are documented, whether you are undocumented, whether you are documented, whether you are undocumented, whether you are elderly, whether you are a child, you will be taken to the authorities by the residents here. As they bring another lady once again, they continue to bring out people one by one. Now we're seeing another lady being taken to the authorities.
This is so freaking disgraceful. So let me understand this. South Africans are going into the homes of migrants, Africans, documented and undocumented. You heard him. Pulling them out of their homes and taking them to the authority. Documented and undocumented. What does that tell you? That tells you that their status is not the issue. They simply do not want other Africans in their country. I mean, this is Afrophobia at its extreme and at its freaking worst. I agree with you, Joel. It is scary. It must be so scary for those who are being taken. To be taken by their fellow Black Africans. For what reason? For what reason? It makes no sense to me. It absolutely makes no sense to me. It's so wrong. It's so evil. I mean, I don't understand how people who have been so persecuted by Africans without turning around to their own people to persecute them, to do to them, to do to other Africans what is being done to them. I mean, it makes no sense to me. It's so wrong. It's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. And this is why this whole March on March protest, you can't see it in any other way but for what it is. It is Afrophobia. It is xenophobia. It's hate. It's jealousy. It's envy. It's anger directed at the wrong people for the wrong reasons. At the wrong people for the wrong reasons. Because where there are Africans who are committing crime in your country, then that's where your authorities should step in. It's a crime. You catch them, you prosecute them, you lock them up. You don't go to schools and pull out Black children simply because they come from a different African country. You don't go to hospitals and pull out sick Black people simply because they come from a different African country. You don't go into Black businesses, pull them out of businesses that they've worked hard for, worked hard in, that contributes to your economy and their businesses simply because they are Black and come from a different African country. Because now my question to South Africans, Black South Africans who are doing this, my question to you is, now do you have that job? Now are your children in that school? Now do you have better health care? Now that you've taken all of these Ghanaians, Nigerians, Zimbabweans, all of them, you kicked them out and you're showing them who has the power. Is your life better? As a system change, is it not working for you? No, I freaking think not. Because you're attacking the wrong people. You're attacking the wrong people. And I honestly believe that these South Africans who are participating in what I can only describe as a political illiterate, cause, politically illiterate cause. These people are going to end up being the reason why South Africans will suffer for this, and South Africa as a country. Because I can also see that South African businesses and South African artists are being banned. They're being rejected from concerts. Their businesses, people don't want to do business with them, and rightly so. I'm not going to blame the whole of South Africa for the actions of, I cannot deny, what looks like thousands of South Africans. But it's clear to me that the South African authorities are not doing nearly enough to curb this I mean, this evil. It's almost like they're not doing anything to end this. And you can see African nations having to take steps to evacuate their people. These South African protesters are killing other South Africans, causing grievous bodily harm to them. That is unacceptable. Unacceptable. But when they see the foreigner, the Afrikaans, when they see the South African Indians or the white South Africans, they have nothing to say. They can't say jack or, because clearly they've been so indoctrinated in seeing the foreigners as masters, they can't even open their mouths to say, okay, actually, you are part of the freaking problem. You are part of the problem. Anyway, this is where we at with South Africa. And I think it's incredibly sad to see. I agree with you, Joel. I think it's very, very sad to see. Nostra Downey says, did someone once say that humans were an intelligent species? I beg to differ. You know what? I agree with you. I beg to differ too. Virgo says it's time to make South Africa African again. They're all part of the beautiful continent of Africa. I know. Our land, Africa as a land. I mean, don't get me wrong. As I said, if there are people who are committing crimes in your country, then the law should apply to deal with those people. You can't expect that South Africans and other African nations, that some of them are not committing crimes. Some of them would. Nobody's kicking them out. Xenophobia is not acceptable, nor is Afrophobia. But this is a really disgusting case of Afrophobia, to my mind. It's just absolutely unacceptable. Again, guys, I'm really looking forward to our chat with Dr. Sabreena, which will start in about 7 or so minutes. Now, talking about Africa, let's go to Nigeria. Let's talk about Nigeria, because there's been a whole, furor right now in Nigeria, and I do not blame Nigerians for being pissed off. Let me see if I can play this. So basically, what has happened is that last week, the Nigerian First Lady, Remi Tinubu, I believe that's her name. I'll have to double check that. Let me see if I can find that here. She basically came out and said, let me see if I can add this.
And to start Akara business doesn't take a lot of money. To start and to
basically, let me give you the background to this so that when you hear what she's saying, you understand. So she's saying to Nigerians, of which millions of them are really struggling financially, and the Nigerian government, of which her husband is the president, is deeply corrupt. She's saying to Nigerians to go and fry akara. Okay, akara is like bean balls, and kuli kuli, it's like a side street food. That, go and do something with yourselves. It's not difficult now. Let me play so you can hear what she's saying. She, as First Lady,
we're trying to give hope, and to start akara business doesn't take a lot of money. To start roasting corn, or somebody even said about grant, you see, they're saying that kuli doesn't take much. We didn't give them a loan. We gave it to them.
Nigerians are pissed off. Oh, when Nigerians are pissed off, I swear, watch this space. Now, watch the reactions of Nigerians to her. Hold on 1 second.
My body they pay me now. Remi Tinubu wife. As you can see now, the youth of Nigeria, we are roasting corn. You say we should start selling kuli or we start roasting corn or frying akara. Now we are roasting corn. So after this corn, I will pay my children's school fees. I will use this corn and buy fuel. This is what you open your mouth and say. On social media, you grant an interview and say that the youth of Nigeria should go and start roasting corn. I don't know if you are planting corn, but I've started my own business. This corn now, I'll use it and buy fuel, use it and pay house rent, use this corn and pay my children's school fees. Since this is what EFCC and DSS are the miserable what Nigerians to be doing. I'm doing it already. Okay.
They are so pissed off, and rightfully so.
A business doesn't take a lot of money. To start roasting corn, or somebody even said about grant, you see, they're saying that kuli doesn't take much.
So what you see her hold is actually her university certificates. Let me play it.
2 years in polytechnic, and then 4 years in a university just to graduate from the Department of Accountancy, just to graduate with these 2 certificates, is to start a business, ma. If I had known, I would have not gone to school. It better make I speak this kind of English. They follow market women, they speak this kind of English. They follow them, they do their business, than to go spend 6 years of my life all for nothing. First lady of Nigeria, is that the best you can do? Is that the best? After 6 years, Siam, Eastern Polytechnic, Siam, River State University. Yes, Siam, no be lie, no be cho. For somebody to graduate with 4.15 in the Department of Accountancy, you will not see that person he read. They didn't do magu for our department. I went to the class, I was reading hard. Just for our first lady to come out and say that he has given Nigerians hope by giving them grants to do a business. Oh God. Let me go and drop this before I fight it.
She's absolutely right to be pissed off. Absolutely right to be pissed off. Because, I mean, let me ask Remi Tinubu. Remi Tinubu, are your own children selling akara? Are they frying akara by the streets? Huh? Your children are in London, America, your husband's children, because we know he has more than one wife, right? I think. All your children and grandchildren, are they frying akara? Boli. Are they doing any of that? Roasting plantain by the street. Are they doing any of that? But you are telling other people's children to go and do that. You're telling them, well, it's not difficult. Just go and do something small. While you and your presidential family are freaking fleecing Nigerians. You are living in wealth and comfort. I swear. Nigerians are not mad enough. Nigerians are not mad enough, because this is exactly the reaction across social media. Nigerian social media is really sharp. And I think Nigerians are absolutely right to be pissed off, because that is such an insult. It's so tone deaf, so out of touch. Something she would not plan or want for her children or want for herself is what she's saying to Nigerians to go and do. How does that make sense? People, how does that make sense? Like the young lady mentioned, she went and got herself a degree. She went and got a certificate. If she had known that, all she needs to do is fry akara, why would she go to university, spend all that time? Why would she be speaking big English? Why would she be doing all that? Because that's not necessary. Is it? It is not necessary. You don't need a university degree or to go to school to sell freaking akara. So I'm so glad Nigerians are absolutely freaking pissed off, because that's exactly what it should be. So we're about to start our chat with Dr. Sabreena. As I said to you guys, she is absolutely brilliant. Love her work. She's unfiltered. So please buckle your belts, because we're going to get down with it tonight with her and speak the unspeakable truth. The very things they tell us when you can't say it. We're like, F every single one of you that's telling us we can't say this, say that, because we're going to say it anyway. So I'm really excited that Dr. Sabreena is going to be joining us. And I hope you all have your questions ready. If there's anything you'd like to ask, I hope when she comes on, please give her a Dr. Shola welcome. You know what it is in our house, eh? You welcome her with lots of love and hello so that she can come back again. You want her to come back again. All right. So she's here. Come on, Sabreena. Look at you, you beautiful woman.
Dr. Shola, I can't believe I'm finally in conversation, in like real life conversation.
Exactly. As you know, I follow your work. I think you're absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So thank you so much for making time to join us today. And congratulations on your new book.
Thank you, which I'm not sure if your viewers know that you were one of the first 25 reviewers of my book and endorsers.
One of the first 25.
Literally the first 25 reviewers. We did our own process of decolonial academic review process, where we reached out to like-minded scholars, academics, and we had them review the book, and you were one of them, and you gave us a glowing review. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so chuffed. I'm so glad I could be part of it. I didn't know I was one of the first 25, which is an honor, of course. But thank you so much for joining me this evening, because I really want us to get down to the, I've been told not to say nitty gritty because apparently nitty gritty is problematic. So I really need to decolonize my mind from the word nitty gritty. So let's get down to it. Let me start by asking you this, Sabreena. What do you think is that one unspeakable truth you believe the world needs to hear right now? That one unspeakable truth you think the world should hear right now?
There's a few, and I'm going to answer this question by basically telling you the two things that I get in the most trouble for when I tweet about them.
Okay.
So one of them is anytime I speak about white women, they just don't like when we talk about white women. And what is that in the context of? White women being the upholders of white supremacy, playing a pivotal role. So whenever I speak about white women as, harmful, I get in a lot of trouble for that. Of course, it's the whole not all white women, not all white people, it starts coming out. The other thing that they really are not happy with us talking about is Jewish supremacy. And I think you know this already.
Yes.
And I think that's the reason why the book has done so well, because I have taken a very academic, scholarly, but presented in layperson terms, this concept of Jewish supremacy, which on the surface is scary, right? Because it sounds like what you're doing is you're taking a religious group and you're a religious group that was once persecuted, and you're now claiming that they are on par with white supremacists, right? Like it sounds like a terrible thing. But as you know, Shola, what we're doing is we're talking about power structures here, right? At the end of the day, everything is about power structures. And, I actually signed on 15 minutes earlier, and I was listening to your, coverage of what's happening in South Africa. And it's so interesting because what you're seeing is the legacy of colonialism.
Yes.
And the legacy of white supremacy,
Yes.
and how it gets internalized into people, and how they then become the perpetrators and upholders of white supremacy.
Yeah.
And South Africa isn't that different to post-colonial India, right? Where we're currently seeing Hindu nationalism take front center stage and become where you see people who are brown oppressing other brown people, and you think, well, what? This doesn't make sense. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But this is that whole internalization of colonialism. And, I actually have said this throughout, and I've been doing this advocacy work for way longer than the last 2.5, 3 years, right? So I've been doing this work for 10, 15 years. And, I've always said that I refuse to believe that Israelis or Jewish Zionists are some uniquely evil people. So when people have these tirades and they're like, Jewish Zionists, Israelis, this is just unbelievable. This is very unique to this culture. That's a terrible culture. The reason why I refuse to talk about Israelis in those terms is that I believe this type of behavior has not only happened before in society, where you've had people be perpetrators of this kind of violence, but is actually possible for it to happen again. And the only way you can prevent it from happening again is if you realize that it's not unique to any one particular culture or people, right? So anyway, long answer short, that Jewish supremacy and white women are the two topics that people are just like, I get so much pushback on those two topics.
Right. You're absolutely spot on. White women are upholders of white supremacy. I see them as the backbone of white supremacy. And I also see that they use their femininity and their agenda to, I think the best word to use for that is to provide agency to that white supremacy. And when we talk about Jewish supremacy per se, we are talking about the ideology of Zionism. We're not talking about Judaism in itself. We are talking about the ideology of Zionism that's been created for the benefit of Jewish people. And it's been exacted by Jews and Christians and, and Muslims who subscribe to Zionism.
which rests on so the whole idea is that Zionism rests on the idea of Jewish supremacy, which is this idea that Jews are special, exceptional. That's at the core of it.
Yeah.
That
And
they
they're
are
not.
exceptional,
Yeah.
that they have exceptional humanity,
And
that
exceptional suffering, which they do
exceptional
not.
suffering, exactly. So that's at the core of Jewish supremacy, right? And how Zionism, which, you know, still a lot of people don't understand what Zionism is, but really it is the belief that Jews are the rightful owners of that land because of some historical ancestral connection. And they say that it's, you know, Israel has the right to exist. But in order for it to exist and for them to be the majority and the, you know, the people in power on that land, it has to go through ethnic cleansing. There is no other way. A majority existing there before has to become a minority that you can then empower. And that's what Zionism is at its core. But in order to exact that political goal, it rests on Jewish supremacy. It has a theological framework that it follows. But what's really interesting and ironic and what contradicts the entire thing is that Zionism rests on theology as its explanation, but you don't have to be a believer and someone of faith to be a Zionist.
Exactly.
Well, we're not allowed to talk about the fact that the majority, I think the number now is like 50 something percent of Israelis in Israel identify as non-practicing Jews. And around the world, it's the same kind of numbers that pass the 50% mark, where we're talking about Jewish people who claim to be Zionists and claim to have a theological right over a piece of land based on theology, based on religion, but they don't actually believe in religion. They don't believe in God.
Exactly. I mean, how do you get away with doing that? How do you weaponize a religion that you don't believe in?
Which also makes Jews exceptional, right? Because Judaism or Jewishness is the only identity in which you don't have to be practicing of that faith to be Jewish. They've turned it into a cultural, ethnic identity. It's an ethnicity, right? So why is it that they are exceptional in that way? And this is where that, you know, the conflict, the contradiction, it all comes out in this topic of Jewish supremacy. And just like, you know, and I always make the connection to white supremacy because it's the easiest way for people to understand. Of course, Zionism also rests on white supremacy because the people who went there and established this land in a within an indigenous Arab population were white Europeans.
Thank you. Thank you. So white European Jews. Yes.
White European Jews, right? Yes. And actually, even back then, you didn't have to be Jewish. You didn't have to be a practicing Jew. And the people who support this idea are Christian Zionists. So the largest number of Zionists in the world are actually Christians.
Exactly. Because what they've done is they've taken religion as their foundation and they've weaponized scripture, turned it into a land deed. Nobody else gets to turn scripture into a land deed. But somehow, some freaking how, Zionists are able to do that. It makes no freaking sense. And as a Christian, I hold Zionist Christians in such deep contempt. I don't even have enough words to describe how disgusted I am with them. These are the same people. If Jesus came up today, these Zionist Christians, they will crucify him all over again. They'll call him woke. They'll call him all the names. They'll prosecute him and persecute him. They're not Christians.
And you know, the other thing that I really want to mention, again, making a connection to what you were speaking about earlier in terms of South Africa, right? Like, it's so easy to look at South Africa and look at it as, like, in many ways, a failed project. Like, you know, it was decolonized, but then currently, South Africa is the country in the world that has the highest inequality. In the entire world, the highest inequality is in South Africa. Now, you can say that this is a result of post-apartheid and the policies that existed, which makes people generationally get stuck in inequality, right? So you can say that. But what you can also say is that this is the legacy of colonialism that then gets internalized in the people. If you are subjugated, if you are treated lesser than, then you repeat those
same behaviors,
right? And towards other people who you then perceive as lesser than you. It's the same kind of mindset that gets repeated. And you know, the connection that I wanted to make was the other explanation of it being such an unequal society is capitalism, right? And the reason why I want to make that connection between South Africa and this kind of capitalist, I would say that the inequality we see in South Africa is a mixture of the post-colonial legacy and capitalism. And I would say that Israel is also the country that rests very heavily on capitalism, right? So this whole, like, you know, the like, they sell Israel as this haven in the Middle East, this Western pinnacle of, forget democracy. It's like a resort, right? They try to sell this very capitalistic, very 5-star resort in the Middle East. That's what they sell it as. And it rests on capitalism, the idea of capitalism, which what other country do we absolutely hate that does this, that subjugates other Black people in the region? Dubai. We fucking hate Dubai. Sorry, am I allowed to swear on this show?
Oh, you are.
We're unfiltered. But Dubai, same thing, right? So there are so many connections, right? Where you see the exploitation of people, of migrants, of immigrants who are brought in to work. I mean, we see the same thing in Israel. Apparently, you know, there was a study done in Israel, you know about this, where every single Indonesian woman who was interviewed in that study said that she was sexually assaulted. While in Israel, those were the working conditions: sexual assault and rape. Every single person. This wasn't like a 80%, 70%, every single person. So this whole exploitation and harm done to people who are brought in to build this 5-star resort, which the way is same thing. And you see that happening, you know, in Israel. So you can't divorce capitalism from...
You can't divorce capitalism from white supremacy. You cannot divorce white supremacy from Zionism, because Zionism, as far as I'm concerned, Zionist supremacy and white supremacy are both the poisonous fruits from the same poisonous tree. Virgo has a question. He's asking, were you saying Dubai as the country, I think you mentioned the country aside from Israel that is hated. So he wants to know,
why do we hate it?
No. He was asking, is it Dubai you meant when you said?
Yes, Dubai. Yeah, absolutely. Because of, you know, and you know, many of the UAE, right? The UAE, the United Arab Emirates, and the harm that's done on Yemen, Sudan, like, you know, our brothers and sisters in those regions who are being oppressed.
Congo.
The Congo. So I feel like sometimes people focus so much on the boogeyman, you know, and this whole like Netanyahu is one bad character. Israel is one bad society. And they forget that these people exist within systems that are actually oppressive. It's the systems, right? And capitalism as a system produces these bad characters and these bad communities that then, that's where we see the physical oppression take place.
But capitalism is the operating system, or the ideology behind capitalism is white supremacy. And the reason Zionism is able to thrive in the West and form the basis of Israel's existence is because of white freaking supremacy. That's the bottom freaking line. And I don't know why people can't see the connection and intersectionality here, because the people who are ruling Israel, the people who are behind this are the white European Jews. You know, if it was Black Jews doing any of this, None of these white folks will be behind this. Nobody will be supporting Zionism created by black Jews for black Jews. It will not even be allowed to exist. But because Zionism, as far as I'm concerned, is a sister, brother, sibling to white supremacy, and it is built on capitalism, it's built on white violence, it is founded on white violence, it is maintained on white violence. That is why it's allowed to thrive. But I do have another question for you. You've consistently, spoken out on issues that many people won't touch. And I know you have paid a personal and professional price for this. What has compelled you to do so, Sabreena?
Like I would be lying if I came on here and started listing, anti-imperialist scholars and saying that that's the only thing that drives me, my education in terms of like Marxism or Frantz Fanon or anti-imperialist like Edward Said and Amy Césaire. Like, yes, I'm very much inspired by the Black liberatories. I'm inspired by historical figures, scholars who have written about the harms of colonialism and imperialism. But the moral compass within me that drives my work is my faith. I'm a Muslim, and I am, everything I do and say in terms of like the courage and the resilience and the persistence, that all comes from a very deep rooted faith in God being in control, and it actually makes me very defiant, and it's my defiance that pisses them off the most, right? So like, as you know, Dr. Shola, right? Like what they would like is for especially Black and brown women, for us to be on our knees, for us to be grateful, for us to be grateful for the fact that we have the doctor title in front of our name, right? Is it not our institutions that you went to and got this education and this title that you're now touting this title and you're hating these countries that you're... So they would like us to be forever grateful for the crumbs that are thrown our way. And the fact that I am defiant in the face of the colonizer, where I have very often said that I will use the tools of the colonizer to free the rest of my people.
Amen. And the people said amen. Preach. Exactly that.
And I say this with a certain level of grief as well for what has been lost in that process. So, I often say that I get a lot of compliments for my speech, right? A lot of people will say that you're so eloquent, Dr. Sabreena, you speak so well, your English is so good, of course, because English is, because of white supremacy and white power, it's like it's put on this pedestal of being the most, and it is the most powerful language, on our planet at the moment in terms of power.
But you and I can agree that speaking English is not a sign of intelligence.
Absolutely not. It's not a sign of intelligence. And what I often say is English, my eloquence in the English language, it dances on the graves of my ancestors. Because the cost of me being so eloquent in English was my lack of eloquence in my mother tongue. And how my father, who, wanted me to have access that, my forefathers maybe didn't have because of that history of colonization of South Asia, he really pushed me to become eloquent in English. He was very proud of my English. Like sometimes people would call and he would be like, I would be like 13, 14, and these are like relatives. And he'd be like, Sabreena, talk to them in English. Show them your English. And, I'd be like, hello, uncle. And he'd be so proud, that I'm speaking English so well. But I often say that my eloquence in the English language came at the price of not being able to be eloquent in my mother tongue. And I grieve that now. Because I'm attracted to that poetry and that, because I'm sure you will agree with this, that the pain and the rage and the love and the grief expressed in my mother tongue far surpasses the English language. And
superior in expression,
superior in terms of
in articulation. It's beautiful, because when I hear the same in Yoruba, which is my mother's tongue, right? It's the way we express things in Yoruba is way more. It has so much more depth than saying it in English. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So, I mean, to answer your question, my faith is my driving force. And another reason why it was really important for me to mention this, because since I'm, provocative, I'm going to mention a provocative thing now. I am very frustrated with this whole left, right, the left, the right, the canceling people on either side. We're fighting for the liberation of Palestinians, and it's like we're being told that the only way that can happen is through the left, right? And now I'm going to put a disclaimer in that obviously we do not side with the Nazis and the racists on the right. Obviously we don't do that. But are we not allowed to, highlight some of the faults in the left? And one of them is this complete erasure of religion, and how the left, in order to be a really, really proper liberal,
Right.
you have to remove religion from your life. And one of the reasons why I say this is that the discourse that's going on X, I don't know if you've seen today, was because today there was I think a university grad, or like a Muslim woman, didn't shake the hand of a male, and it turned into this really big thing where Islam and Muslims were being again attacked for being oppressive because a woman can't, shake the hand of a man. Now, the reason why I find this so, comical is that not shaking people's hands during the pandemic was seen as a sign of being civilized.
And saving lives.
Like, that was I thought we got past the whole, shaking hands is good or bad. We all agreed as a society that people don't have to shake hands. You don't have to touch another human. We should have that agency to be able to say, no, I don't want to be. And Dr. Shola, how many times have you as a woman not shaken the hand of a man, not because of religion, but because you don't trust that fucking man?
Exactly.
Why should I have to shake someone's hand who looks like a fucking sleazeball to me? It's like,
you're right.
All feminism goes out the window when it comes to Muslims.
Yeah.
And this is where that imperial Western liberal feminism comes to harm women who are not white women.
I agree. I think that they always take away our agency to blame something. And so in this case, it's Islam. Why is it, Muslim women can't do this, can't do that? And then you look at Christian women and you realize, actually, as a Christian woman, I'm not that free, because you tell me what to wear, you tell me how to look, you tell me how to present myself, you tell me I should go have children if I don't want to have to, and if I have children, you tell me how I can raise them if I don't raise them this way. Christianity puts a whole different level of burden on women, from a societal perspective. So I think it's bullshit. You're right. As women, we have agency. And just like you, my faith plays a whole lot. Note that I said faith, not religion. I don't do religion. I think religion is man-made. But my faith in God, my relationship with God is what shapes. It shapes my agency. It shapes my advocacy. It shapes my activism. Because I know one day, like I'm sure you also agree, one day you and I are going to stand before our Maker. And he's going to ask us one question. He's not going to ask, are you Muslim, Christian? And as a Christian, he's not going to ask me, oh, are you Catholic, Baptist, Methodist? I don't think God is going to give a rat's ass about what denomination. I think God is going to ask me one question and one question only. What did you do with what I gave you? What did you do with what I gave you? And I better have an answer, because Sabreena, Shola cannot do hell. It can't happen.
Same. And speaking of this kind of contradiction that we see, and again, this is where white supremacy and white power comes in, right? At all times. I don't know if you saw that news clip that came out of Anne Hathaway, the Hollywood actress, and she's on a boat and she's basically wearing what looks like a burkini where she's all covered up. And the headline is Anne Hathaway's commitment to sun protection is inspiring.
No, I didn't see that.
I'm surprised you didn't see this because you would have loved that one.
Oh my word.
And so
But if it was a Muslim woman, it would be oppressive.
Exactly.
This takes me to, this segues nicely to my next question to you, which is how do powerful political and media narratives, how do they shape what people are allowed to think, question, and say?
How do media narratives do that?
Yeah, powerful political media narratives shape what people are allowed to think, question, and say.
I mean, even something, so I can answer this question in a couple of different ways. So we, what we believe is about people is shaped by media narratives. So all the tropes and the stereotypes and the preconceived kind of biases that we have towards Black people, towards Muslims, towards Chinese people, like all of those are shaped by media narratives, right? And this has been happening forever. And this is something Edward Said talks about in Orientalism, and how, you know, the Arab brown man has been portrayed as barbaric, and, you know, all the films and the news stories have portrayed him as such. And the same thing when it comes to the Black man or the Black woman. You know, we've been portrayed within these like confines, right? Now comes, what are we allowed to say or not say, and that being shaped by narratives. So the news media plays a very, very critical role in guiding us on what's allowed, what's not allowed, based on what will be persecuted, what will not, what will be suppressed, what will be not. And that's why when we see stories being shared of someone losing their job because of saying Free Palestine, or, you know, like recently at a conference, I think it was like one of the ministers of Israel speaks about how they were successful in basically punishing Francesca Albanese for you know, her role in being anti-Israel, how her husband lost his job even, or
Yes.
you know, so, you know, that is done on purpose to scare people, to make them think that watch what you say because you're next.
Exactly.
You know, this is how powerful we are.
Exactly.
And this also actually speaks to, you know, the first thing we mentioned on here, this idea of Jewish supremacy, right? And how we're not really allowed to talk about Jewish supremacy, and this contradiction where it's like, don't talk about how powerful we are and that we are oppressors, because that's anti-Semitic to claim that we have power. But if you do say that, then we're going to fuck you up.
Exactly.
We're going to be successful. And look at all the ways we have been successful in that.
Exactly. And that's what they did to Francesca Albanese, right?
That's exactly what they did.
Banned from the US. They got a husband fired. I'm like, do you people realize you just proved that what you claim is a trope? And it can't be a trope if it's true. Because if you have that kind of power to influence and demand an entire government go after one person and their family, you're freaking powerful. You're proving it.
And the reason why this particular topic is so important, Dr. Shola, and the reason why I included it in my book, and I spent so much time and I really backed it up with like facts and data and sources, right? Like the section on Jewish supremacy is so beefed up because I knew they were going to attack it, right? Yeah. The reason why it's so important, because for a few years now, we've been talking about this idea of the Palestine exception, where people say that we're allowed to talk about anything but Palestine. It's justice for everyone but Palestinians. This is the Palestine exception. What that does is it almost puts the onus on the individual, and it says that the individual is choosing to care about other oppressions, but not the Palestinian oppression, right?
Right,
That
right,
they are choosing one group over another. Now, whatever reason there may be for them choosing, the onus is on the people who are favoring one group over another. And they call this the Palestine exception, where it's like justice for anyone except for Palestinians. But what I say in this book is that the Palestine exception cannot work on its own. There is an antagonist in the story. There is a force, there is a pressure force coming down that results in people losing their job for saying
yes,
that, Israel is an oppressive state, right?
yeah,
And that's not just the Palestine exception working on its own. There has to be some sort of power enforced within institutions that then makes people lose their job.
exactly.
And
That enforces it.
that enforces it. So what I say in this book is that the Palestine exception works in tandem with Jewish exceptionalism and Jewish supremacy. And it's when they work together, they create this powerful force which materializes all of those ideas, the concepts, right? Where people are actively losing their jobs for saying simply that they're against the genocide.
Exactly. Guys, if you don't have a copy of DEI Undone, this is what it looks like. That's our gorgeous Dr. Sabreena on there. Please go get yourself a copy. And I'm telling you, it would be worth it. So this takes me to my next question, Sabreena, because I was wondering, does that mean that in today's climate, that fear has become a greater threat to free speech than censorship itself?
So I guess what you're pointing out is the self-censorship, right? How we self-censor. We are the first to censor ourselves. And yes, I do think that and you know what? I don't think that this is today's climate. This is a today's climate issue. I think this has this psychological oppression has existed in every society where people have been enslaved or oppressed, placed in concentration camps. How do you convince a people that they're powerless? Right? Like that's at the root of it. Because I remember being a child, I remember being, a lot of the irony in all of this is that a lot of my passion for justice came from my education about the Holocaust when I was younger. So when I learned about the Holocaust and the persecution of Jews, it really drove me to to try to understand how do societies allow this to happen, right? How can this happen? And I remember being a child and thinking, but there were so many of them, why didn't they just all band together and just leave? Same thing when you think of enslaved Africans. Why didn't they all just band together and kill their masters and oppressors? And this is where psychological oppression is so powerful, where the first person to, in this situation, in this context, we're talking about the censorship of your speech, but the censorship of your thought, to not believe in your own freedom. You are the first to oppress yourself.
Yep. And that's a psychological thing because of the environment we're in, and because we can see how they make examples of other people, and because there's a real cost to speak it out. And that real cost might not just impact you, it might impact your loved ones. It might impact your ability to be able to eat, to be able to live. And that is what some people weigh. Whereas there are some people who go, you know what? Forget all of that. Not because it's not important, but because I understand that if I don't speak up now, then when will I? And if I don't do it, then who will?
So, Shola, I have to say that, yes, there is a cost, right? There is definitely a cost to speaking up. But the part that I think they don't want us to say and for people to hear is that the cost doesn't outweigh your, the the importance of your own freedom, right? So for me to be free, to be liberated in my own mind, that and in my speech, and to live freely, and for my conscience to be clean, and for me to know, like you said, driven by my faith, knowing that I will face my creator one day, that's what drives me. So that outweighed the cost, right? And so I did it for those reasons. But the point that I want to make here is that those of us who are defiant and who come out on stage and say, yeah, well, you know what? Fuck you. It's fine. I'm happy like this. I'm really glad I did what I did. And actually, I won. Actually, we are winning.
Yeah.
It's actually the defiant ones that they come after.
Yes.
And they shut us up because it's actually defiance that breeds collective solidarity and freedom. So the reason why they come after people like us, and they came after me hard, they still are coming after me hard, constantly. Like my book launch was scheduled in one of Toronto's most historic, iconic public libraries. And there was a mass campaign to get it cancelled. And this was one of the first times in the last 3 years where a counter campaign beat the Zionist campaign.
Brilliant.
So a Jewish rabbi was the one who started a counter campaign saying that, telling people, call, write emails, tell the library not to cancel this event. And the event wasn't canceled, right? So they did come after me hard, and they're trying to silence me because I'm a very defiant person. And defiance breeds, it's like an infection, right? Like it's very infectious, this love for freedom, and when someone turns around and says, I prefer freedom over money.
Yes.
I prefer my freedom over my job. I prefer my freedom over any of the riches that you're presenting to me, the carrot that you're dangling in front of me. I prefer my freedom over that.
Yeah.
When someone is willing to say that out loud with such defiance,
Yeah.
they know that other people are going to listen and be like, shit, that looks really liberating.
And if she can do it, maybe I can ride on her coattail. Maybe I can just stand beside her or behind her. I love that. That is you're absolutely spot on. And I think that what it does do is to inspire. One of our guests last week, Tom, he said he's not denying that it is scary when the oppressor comes out after you. But he said it's so important for people to put it in the right context, because he said, look at the billions of children, 1 million children in a concentration camp in Gaza. That should be your benchmark. That's the only thing. And he said, even when he thought, oh, does this mean I'm going to be skinned? Does this mean this will happen to me? He said, now he's in a dream job. His life is better than it was before because he's living in his truth. And that is far more important. And I think more stories like his and yours and mine need to be told, because people will always, when we think about fear, people always think about the worst case scenario and not realizing that there could be something better on the other side. So let me ask this though. How do you think race, religion, and identity has influenced the way public voices are received in Canada, in the United States, or even in Britain?
So obviously, because of the legacy of colonialism, and how even today, white voices, colonial voices are given importance.
Yeah.
The way that these voices have been received, even the people who are speaking for a free Palestine, the ones who are given the pedestal, are white people, are Jews, and this is a colonial, this is how colonialism works in today's environment when it comes to knowledge mobilization, right? And whose voice is considered objective and bias free and credible and important. And this is the reason why, we just saw the news come out yesterday where I guess it's the international body of journalists or journalism, is redefining who can be called a journalist. And the reason why is because they want to remove the title of journalist away from people in Gaza, in Lebanon, who are journalists,
Yes.
because they are, I mean, how fucking ridiculous is this? You're living in Gaza,
Yeah.
your elected government body is Hamas,
Yeah.
and you are a journalist operating there. So you are automatically considered part of Hamas. You're not considered an independent
Or
voice
separate. You're simply a
from the
citizen.
government.
Yeah.
But American journalists aren't considered to be part of their fascist
No,
dictator government.
they're not conflated with that.
It's
No.
not conflated with that. But people who live within these regions, they are constantly lumped in with their, oppressive governments, and said that, okay, now that title of journalist is going to be removed from you so easily. So this is why, even when I speak about my own title, doctor, I always say to people that, yes, they want me to be grateful for my title, a title that I know can be taken away as easily as it was given.
Can you imagine?
I don't
know, we worked hard for it. I worked hard for my PhD, and we worked hard for it. And here they always try to they try to move the goalpost all the freaking time.
That was a major campaign, by the way, against me. Like, they were trying here in Canada to get my university to remove the PhD title from me, to take my. I mean, they try. I mean, it didn't work. But the point is that they want to take accreditation and licensing, just like doctors are having their licenses taken away. People like you and me, what they come after are the colonial titles.
Exactly.
Because these are gifts. These are crumbs that have been given to us, and they want them back now, right?
This is what I'm saying about how cruel, and I would say it's the double standards for me, because the reality here is I've had the same here in the UK. They've come after and campaigned against, because I have 2 honorary doctorate degrees, right? And they've campaigned against the universities and want them to take those doctorate titles from me. But I was already a doctor before I was given this honorary doctorate degrees. I have a PhD I earned that comes with the doctor title. So it's not about being honored with it anymore, but they really pushed. And one of the universities actually gave Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. a doctorate degree as well, an honorary doctorate degree. And it's amazing to me how these people fly off the handle, because you're right. They say, let's strip them, hers, these women, and these men that are defiant. Let's strip them of whatever it is that makes them credible so we can discredit them. Let me ask you this about how governments have failed society. Why do you think so many governments in the West, and not just the West actually, appear selective in their commitment to international law and human rights? And I know I say the West, but I've also seen countries that suck up to Israel. And they all seem to be quiet when Israel continually violates international law and human rights. Why do you think they're selective? Power? Capitalism?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's power and capitalism, and it just so happens that now, in the society that we're in this global order, the empire that's oppressing us is the imperial American empire. There was a time where it was the British colonial empire, and now it's the American imperial empire. And, I don't know if you remember, but, Biden, in an interview, and I think it was in the 80s, he had said, if Israel didn't exist, we would have to create an Israel in the Middle East. So,
wow.
And this is Biden's own words, that if it didn't exist, we would have had to create it because we needed it, right? They needed an Israel. Israel, in many ways, and this is why, again, I'm very careful in not turning Israel into some sort of like uniquely problematic Jewish, problem, or like Jewish state that, if we just get rid of it falls into the line of thinking of, if we get rid of the Jewish state and the Jews, everything will be fine. Everything will be back to normal.
No, it won't, because the system still exists.
The system is white supremacy, like we said. The
Yeah.
system is white power. The system is colonialism. It was the British that colonized Palestine, and it was the British that gave land to the Jews, right?
Yeah.
And betrayed. Exactly. And it was the British that colonized Africa and colonized South Asia, India. So I think people have like such amnesia, they forget the history of colonization and how empires have worked in the past. And how now we're living through this current imperialist empire. And one way to understand that, and I think only in the last year have people really understood how imperial empire has control over our regions. In this war with Iran, it wasn't until Iran started bombing its neighboring countries and their military bases did initially people were like, but why is Iran bombing Qatar? Why is Iran bombing other Arab? What got revealed was that there are all these US military bases in these countries. Why the fuck are they there?
Exactly. Those are the power systems they've put there. And so Iran, and Lord knows I'm so not a fan of the Iranian government, but I thought that was a freaking smart move. Because rather than try to bomb America or, return bombs to America and bomb Israel, what did it do? It attacked America's interest in its neighboring countries. And that weakened America. You can imagine the billions of dollars that's been spent on all of those military infrastructure that they have. And talking about colonialism, to add to your list of where Britain colonized, let's not forget that Britain colonized America, the United States of America. That's who they got their freaking independence from. And how for decades, hundreds of years, white Americans created the immigration system that would bring millions of Europeans to America and give them free standing, free board, while the Black Americans who built that country were barely surviving, while the Native Americans who own that land were barely surviving, and they are still living with the consequences of those actions today.
And all of this ties back to this question that you asked of like, why are these governments not seeing what we're seeing? Or like international law, what happened to international law? I actually don't think that international law was created for the interest of our people. It was created, and you would know this better. You're the law person, but it was created for the interests of the powerful.
Thank you. Hello. Say it again. Say it again. Let them hear you at the back.
And so that is why, again, people are surprised. They're like, oh my God, but why isn't the ICJ doing something? Why did it take them 3 years to even recognize that a genocide is taking place?
Right.
And, speaking of internalized colonialism, I saw something so fucking sick today that pissed me off. It was on LinkedIn, but it was a Muslim woman. And just so you know, and I wonder if you have this, anytime I see interfaith in the title of someone's title, red flag, right? Because I was immersed in this whole kind of like Muslim, Jewish, interfaith world many, many years ago. And I realized very quickly that it was a facade for normalization. And this whole interfaith industry is kind of like created so that people can pretend that it's about getting along and it's really about religion, but really we're talking about power structures here, right? So anyway, it was this woman who had interfaith whatever in her title, and she had shared, and this is a Muslim woman who wears a hijab, who lives in the global south, and she was saying, as Muslims, we really need to stop perpetuating this lie that a genocide is taking place in Gaza, because, and she states stats how the birth rate has increased every 5 years in Gaza, and how could a genocide be taking place if everyone's having babies, and like the population is growing, so how and exactly my reaction exactly. And I was just like, that is internalized. It's not just stupidity, right? Because obviously it's stupidity.
It is. They're born with stupid or they're raised stupid.
No, obviously she doesn't understand, the definition of genocide, which
Right.
isn't just, it's conditions that are created to cause the elimination and annihilation of a group of people, right? So the
Right.
conditions have to be present for that to happen. And it's based on intent more than anything else. So yes, there is a genocide, obviously. So you'd have to be stupid to not know that. But the fact that she felt that it was so important to say this out loud on LinkedIn because she wanted to be the good immigrant, the good Muslim, the good Muslim. And again, kind of tying back to your segment where you were looking at news coming out of South Africa, and you see Africans, harming other Africans.
Yeah.
And it's this internalized colonialism of oppressing your own people to again show to the colonizer that we're the good ones.
Exactly.
Right.
And what these people, and I sometimes I start with what they don't realize, and now I'm past that, because I think they do realize that what they're doing is they're legitimizing the oppressors' words. They're legitimizing it by using their race, gender, and their religion. The three things. So as a woman, and as a brown woman, and as a Muslim. So the three things that she gets persecuted for, she's lending that to give this racist thinking and ideology and this lie about no genocide. She's lending legitimacy to the lie. So now people turn and say, oh, but look, it's a brown Muslim woman that say there's no genocide.
And it's also because there are material benefits that come from it. So not only is it like this internalized colonialism, this psychological thinking that you're lesser than and you are less deserving because you've internalized those views about your own people, but it's also proximity to power promises you individual success and benefits. So a lot of these people, and we hear this all the time, black faces in high places, brown faces in high places are not going to save us, because this is where the class analysis is so important. You cannot talk about race without talking about class, because I believe that a poor working class white man who is being oppressed within this capitalist system in some poor area of America probably has a lot more in common with a Palestinian than a rich brown Arab. So, and that's where you will find that our movements are filled with people who get it, because they realize that they're not part of the top 1%. They're not part of the class that benefits from white supremacy and from imperialism, right? They're the ones who get harmed by it. So, what happens is you get these brown faces, Muslim faces, black faces in high places. They're tokenized and placed in those roles. Kamala Harris, people who are, again, upholders of that system of white supremacy. Why? Because there are individual benefits that are promised to you, and you materially benefit from the oppression of your own people. And this isn't anything new. This happened in every oppressed system, every oppressed society. You had, like in India, you had people in the upper classes, even in Palestine. Even
Yes.
when the British came and they were colonizing it, and the Jews were favored over the Muslims and the Arabs, you had rich Palestinians who gave away land, who colluded,
Yes.
right? And in India, you had rich Indians who colluded with the British.
And in Germany, you had Jews who colluded with the Nazis.
But we're not allowed to talk about that, though, Shola.
Listen, when I learned this only in this past year or so. And that tells you how much my knowledge of the Holocaust was really limited to only what happened to Jewish people. It wasn't expanded beyond that. So the way that the day I learned about Jews who they were probably Zionists who colluded with Nazis, my mouth was wide open. I could not believe it because this was not something I was aware of. This was not something I was aware of at all.
Why were
like,
you
no
not?
way.
I'm gonna push back a little bit. Why were you not aware, Shola? Why do you think you were not aware of this?
Oh, I know exactly. I know exactly why I was not aware, because what I learned was given to me through a streamlined understanding of what they want me to see is the Holocaust. So let me put it this way to you. One of the things my dad used to do was he would get us to watch documentaries, right? Now I take my children to the places, like I'll take them to Hiroshima. My dad started this whole thing of, okay, come together, we're going to watch this documentary about this and it happened and blah, blah, blah. So I think I must have been, I don't know, maybe I was 9 or so. And we watched this documentary on the Holocaust. And I can tell you, Sabreena, the images are still in my head. I can still hear the words of the narrator. That is how much it's impressed upon my young mind. So growing up, I did not realize that I always saw the Jewish identity and through that lens and prism of the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody told me. I was not aware of all these other things I became aware of in the last 3 years, which is why a lot of things have been a shock to me. So, for instance, I actually thought that the Nazis turned Jewish bodies into soap, only for an anti-Zionist Jew journalist, Katie Halper, to say that never happened. I said, get out of here. Because 9-year-old me can still hear the narrator on that BBC or whatever documentary with the piles of bodies saying they turned these bodies into soap. So what the hell was I being fed at 9 years old that it took me becoming in my late 40s to finally learn the truth about some of these things that I thought I knew? That's insane.
So, this is such an, interesting topic, and I'm so glad you brought this up. Like, I'm a sociologist and criminologist, right? So my kind of area of focus has been like deviance and also race and ethnicity and identity. And, I really truly believe in human beings being very like complex, multi-layered people who can move between good and bad. Like, what is good, what is bad, like who defines these things? Like, how is deviance defined? Like, who defines deviance even, right? And so I am a very open-minded person in that sense, and that's the approach I take to the criminal justice system as well, right? So I'm very kind of abolitionist when it comes to the prison system and all of that, and deviance and criminality. The part that I find in what you just said very interesting is that all human beings, all societies, all groups and all cultures, all identity groups should be described as they are, which is complex, where you can have people who are terrible, people who are good, people who are victims, people who are perpetrators of violence, people who are not victims, right? But what's really interesting about what you're telling me, what it reinforces, is this idea of Jewish exceptionalism, because what we've been taught is that other than the victim identity, there is no other identity that we are allowed to attribute to this one particular group. So There can be terrorists, there can be violent, evil, horrible people within the Arab communities.
Yes.
We're allowed to talk about how ISIS is this terrible terrorist organization and Muslims denounce them. But we're not even allowed to talk about the fact that within the Jewish community,
Yeah.
that there are people who are terrible and doing terrible things.
And
Any mention
crimes,
committing horrific barbaric crimes, any mention of that, and you're immediately cast off as an anti-Semite.
And that's deliberate. That is intentional. This is how they control the narrative. This is how they execute punishment, because they only want Jews to be seen in a certain light. But you're absolutely right that Jews are no different from Christians or from Muslims or from atheists. There will be people, Jewish people who do good things and Jewish people who do bad things. Why is it not part of the history we hear about the Jewish identity or anything else, for them to tell us these people exist? In fact, to be honest with you, I remember in the past year or so hearing about the Bolshevik Jews and how many Christians they killed. And this is me like, why are we only hearing about, well, forget why am I only hearing about these things now? Because like you said, I know a lot about Christians who do evil things and who do wonderful, great things. I have never conflated those people with Christianity. I know the same of Muslims who do terrible things, who do good things. I've never conflated them with Islam. So what's the standard of exceptionalism that the Jewish community enjoy, that we are never allowed to critique, condemn them when they do awful things like Netanyahu and all this Ben Gvir, all of them that committing evil crimes? Because the moment you do so, it's, oh, that's anti-Semitic.
And if someone turns around and says, yeah, but Shola, 6 million Jews were killed because of their Jewishness, so we have to protect Jewish people from that kind of maligning definitions because 6 million Jews were killed. Now, my response to that is that over 100 million Indians were killed by the British Raj.
Thank you.
Why is it that we're not protecting that group from another genocide taking place or another horrific colonial massacre taking place? Why is it that only one group is being protected for something terrible that happened to them? Yes, terrible thing that happened, but it's not the only terrible thing that's happened in history to any one particular group.
Exactly. And this is why I always push back on this narrative about the Holocaust. And I always make a point of calling it the Nazi Holocaust, because it's not the only freaking Holocaust that's happened in this world. But I push back on the narrative that Nazi Holocaust is the worst thing to have happened in world. I'm like, maybe in white freaking history. Maybe in white history, the Holocaust was the worst thing to happen to white people, committed by white Christians against white Jews, but not in global freaking history. Because as you and I know, the Africans were the first blueprints of the Germans. The Germans, first of all, the first recorded Holocaust of the 19th century by Germans was against the Namibians. The Namibians went through everything first before these Germans, which would have included Jews as well, not just Christians. Before these Germans decided to do it to German Jews and German Polish people, all of that. And let's not even start talking about Africans, all those that were enslaved, all those on the continent. Let's not even start talking about the Native Americans. So many more of them were murdered, genocide, ethnic cleansing, concentration camps. Don't even get us started on the Aboriginals. So every single time I hear this this story of the Nazi Holocaust being the worst, I'm like, that's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. That's not true. And the reason they say that is because they want to play Olympic oppression Olympics, and then it's deliberate. and I'm sure you and I can agree on this, that they get so mad when we compare the Nazi Holocaust to the Zionist Holocaust that we are witnessing today, and we've been witnessing for the last 3 years. They get mad at it because they think that the word Holocaust and the word genocide only belongs to Jewish people, white Jewish people. Let me rephrase that. To white Jewish people. And we all know that that's not true, because genocides were happening long before the Nazi Holocaust. Nobody wants to talk about the atomic Holocaust that the United States committed against Japanese. You were just talking about the colonial Holocaust on the Indians, which is far worse than the Nazi Holocaust. The colonial Holocaust on Africans, on South Americans. Nobody wants to talk about that because, to my point, governments are selective in their commitment to who they protect and who they serve when it comes to international law and human rights. And we know that capitalism, white supremacy, fascism, all these things are at the root of it.
And
Because-
currently, obviously, the power system, the system that that global power system that we have is white supremacy. It is white power. So proximity to that power will grant you benefits and advantages, and then you then are participating in the system of white supremacy through your proximity to that power system. So I think what people get very uncomfortable with is, when you use words like white supremacy, people think that you're attacking whiteness or somebody's skin as being white or them being a white person.
Only because they're ignorant. It's only ignorant people that think that, because we know that white supremacy is not about the color of your skin. It is about whiteness, and whiteness is that ideology and that system created by white people for white people to the detriment of Black and brown people. It's a power construct. It's a power construct.
And that's why, you started off by asking me what we're not allowed to talk about. And, I mentioned white women because, I often say that white women's tears are weapons of violence and harm used against Black and brown boys and men. Their tears are literally weapons.
Yes.
And, so does that mean every white woman on this planet who cries, uses her tears as a form of violence? No. But what we're trying to say is that when a white woman uses her tears to show her fragility and fear because of a Black or brown boy or man, and she weaponizes those tears become weapons of mass destruction to these communities. And just the way a young Black boy in a hoodie has been harmed by white women, now we're seeing, young brown boys wearing a keffiyeh with beards having the same weapons used against them.
Yes. Yes.
And it's white women's tears.
Yes.
And, the reason why I felt like it was so important for me to include a whole chapter on white women, because, people don't necessarily understand how powerful white women are in being upholders of that system of white supremacy. In many ways, they are the reason why white men take it upon themselves to avenge their Jezebel, pure, innocent, white damsel in distress, and harm entire groups and communities of Black and brown people, for them.
Yeah.
For them. And people like, women like Taylor Swift, and this is not me hating on Taylor Swift as an individual, but what she represents in terms of her being that epitome of that gentle, docile white woman. And I feel actually, and this is me kind of pushing a little bit, being provocative, I actually think she wants to escape from that role even. There have been moments in her music where I have felt that she has wanted to show that she's not that white that
Well, hold on.
do you know what I mean, right?
I
Like
think I do, but unless she comes out and says it herself, I think that you're just giving her the benefit of the doubt, which is
benefit of the doubt maybe, but like sometimes her music just it feels like she's trying to escape it, but she's been placed in that role and she definitely fulfills that role very, very well, right? And anyway, people like her, somebody could turn around and be like, oh, but she's just like innocent and she's, just making music. Really, though, she is taking things that should belong to Black women or, women from other groups, like the awards and the, she's taking up space. That's the point here, right? That white women will take up this space, all this space in the room. And this is why white liberal feminism is so harmful as well. It takes up all the space in the room where no other kind of feminism exists. Maybe there was a time where radical feminism had a space. Maybe there was a time where Black feminists, had a space. But I feel like, white liberal feminism has just taken over and it harms women. Like, and that's what I speak about in the book as well when it comes to the Me Too movement. First of all, the Me Too movement was a hijacking of a Black woman's slogan.
yes.
It was a Black woman who wrote #Me Too, and then all of a sudden a white woman says it, and everyone's like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
And
It happens all the time.
That cooptation of the struggle and the oppression and the harms faced by Black women, and then they co-opt that messaging and make it about white women. So they take up that space, and then they get into that space, but then they don't want to bring everyone else with them. They don't want to free other women with them. That space is only taken. So, the DEI, this already, but the biggest benefactors of diversity, equity, inclusion are white women.
Yep. Yes, that's true. Absolutely.
The entire DEI industry has only managed to benefit white women.
Exactly. Even though it was fought for by Black people, white women ended up being the biggest beneficiaries of it. And again, this is what I'm saying. But the thing is, you and I know that white women are still going to be okay. You see, you and I know that even when they scrap DI, white women know they will still be okay. That's the thing. And it doesn't matter because the whole angst and the whole plan against cutting DI, they wanted to affect Black and brown people. Even though it will end up affecting white women, but at the same time, white women will still be okay. Because this is white supremacy. White supremacy will still uphold them because they uphold white supremacy.
And so, when we were talking about Jewish supremacy, and I was telling you how in the book, I kind of make that distinction, or I make that connection between white supremacy and Jewish supremacy, and I mention and I say that even the reason why it's very important for us to talk about Jewish supremacy and Jewish power is that there is an undeniable benefit and privilege afforded to Jewish people because of that exceptionalism. Mm-hmm. And even if you are an anti-Zionist Jewish person, you benefit from it. Mm-hmm. So even if you are an anti-racist white person and you're out there on the front lines and you're fighting for the freedom of Black people, you are benefiting from the system of white supremacy.
Yeah.
You're still benefiting. And you know what you're doing, which is commendable, is using your privilege. Yeah. Using your privilege for the good, right? Yeah. So you're putting your body on the line. You're risking your benefits so that you can fight racism. Exactly. And that's what we see with a lot of anti-Zionist Jewish people, where they are using that and I was recently with a Jewish ally, and I asked him this question, and I said, do you think that you have privilege as a Jewish person, a Jewish anti-Zionist?
Yeah.
You have privilege? And he said, yes, of course I have privilege. Of course I have privilege. The
No.
point is that I try to use that privilege to fight for the right thing, right? For the freedom of Palestinians.
Yeah.
And that's where like the connection can be made. That
Which is why I think that anti-Zionist Jewish people, and specifically white anti-Zionist Jewish people, who understand that they have privileges for being white and being Jewish, are doing the right thing and doing the Lord's work. I have time for them. I will always have time for them. But let me ask you, do you make a distinction between saying Jewish supremacy and Zionist Jewish supremacy? Because we know that both, I mean, while the Zionists hate both language and they want to control and penalize anyone for saying Jewish supremacy or Zionist Jewish supremacy, even though we know this supremacy exists, it appears to me that saying Jewish supremacy they come harder at you for saying Jewish supremacy versus saying Zionist Jewish supremacy. So do you make a distinction?
I always use this example to get people to understand, right? So for many, many years now, we have been talking about the Modi government in India, and we've been talking about Hindu supremacy and Hindutva ideology. So Hindutva ideology is at the core of Hindu supremacy is at the core of Hindutva ideology. Interestingly, very much inspired by Mein Kampf and white supremacy. We've been talking about Hindu supremacy for 10 odd years. I literally did a research project on it a couple of years ago through ISPU in the US, and we looked at the impact of Hindu nationalism and Hindu supremacy on American institutions and the public. How come no one gets upset when we talk about Hindu supremacy?
Well said.
Why am I allowed to say Hindu supremacy and I don't have to make a distinction like, well, it's Hindu non bad people, Hindu nationalists, not all Hindus, not all white people. Why is it that we have to do this whole not all bullshit, right? Like, because what Hindu supremacy is getting to, it doesn't say that all Hindus are supremacists. What it's saying, just like not all white people are white supremacists, but there is a system of power which rests on white supremacy, Hindu supremacy, wherever you have this unfair power advantage in a society. And in Israel, you know, it was actually Beit Salem in 2021, where they called the Jewish state of Israel a state of Jewish supremacy. A human rights org within Israel was one of the first organizations to write an article and talk about the state of Israel as a Jewish supremacist apartheid state.
Brilliant.
So, you know, I think every time we feel the need to say Jewish Zionist supremacist, we are doing what we have been asked to do for ages, which is just appealing to the colonizer and to, you know, like the colonizer polices our language while it kills our people. Literally, you know, yesterday I saw the body of a little girl with her brains blown out, a tiny little like 2-3 year old toddler, and here I'm fucking being asked to make a distinction between like this word and that word. Like, go fuck yourself. Like, our language is being policed while bodies of our people are being piled up.
Exactly.
Our humans are being dehumanized, and we have to humanize language.
Well freaking said. Well said. I mean, to be honest with you, when I saw the girl's body on, it was on a table. You know, every single time in the past year that I see images come out of Gaza and now from Lebanon, I find myself at a loss for words. It's almost like all I have now is rage. All I have now is rage. And even my rage, I don't have enough words to express my rage. Does that make sense? I mean, I think for the first time in my life on the public forum, I used the F word.
I saw that tweet actually, and I
And
was very inspired by it.
I just was at a point where I went, I have no freaking words left. In fact, a word that I hardly ever use is now the word that I'm using because I am so angry. This 2-3-year-old toddler should not be dead. Should not be dead. 3 years into a freaking genocide.
And
I'm
weeks
sorry,
into a
don't mean to say that
ceasefire.
to you.
Weeks into a ceasefire.
Ceasefire.
And like I always think about how much time and importance and that is given to Jewish lives.
Yeah.
Again, this is an example of Jewish supremacy where Jewish lives matter. The truth is every life of course matters.
Yes.
But the Bieber's babies, or
Yes.
was it the twins or
Yes,
the
no,
twins?
not twins, but the two Bieber's children.
Yeah, the Bieber's children. Where
Which they got.
the fact that I even know their name, the fact that I said Bieber's and you remembered, like it means that it's been drilled and we know, we've heard, we should know about every child that has been killed unjustly. We should know.
We should.
But we don't know
We don't.
about the lives that are Black and brown. We don't know those names.
It's intentional.
Those names are not put on, media banners for us to just memorize and for them to be stuck in our minds.
Exactly. And they really made an example of the two Bieber's children, especially because they weaponized their deaths. Because think about it. Nobody knew. I think that their funeral was held a year after they were killed. I'm like, when they killed in like October or November 2023.
Mhm.
So why is it this worldwide cover to cover 24/7 coverage? I think because their bodies had been recovered or something.
Mhm.
And now there was that. And by this time, tens of thousands of Palestinian children had been murdered. Not one, not even Hind Rajab with the over 300 bullets shot into her and her car. The car she was in got that kind of coverage.
Mm-hmm. And going back to your feeling of that rage and anger and the pressure on people like you and me, Dr. Shola and Dr. Sabreena, with our colonial titles, these kind of titles that have been given to us as gifts, and how it begs us to mute our rage constantly, for us to not show the emotion that's natural.
Yes.
When you see your people or any person who is oppressed being murdered, and the fact that it's expected of you to mute your rage, think of the impact that has on people long term. And the truth is, I've been watching you for years as well. And I know that you function very similarly to me in that you put a very strong, bold face forward.
We have to.
You present yourself as very eloquent, very, just proper, proper. We have to be proper. And I remember actually when it hurt me the most seeing you in that role, it was when you were on the Piers Morgan interview, with regards to when you were being attacked for your comments around that, the BAFTAs and the
yes.
I remember looking at you and thinking to myself, how unfair it is to expect this woman to be presenting herself with such muted emotions. Because I've seen you and I've followed you for years, I could tell that you were suppressing that kind of pain. And it's almost like you're carrying your entire community on your shoulders, because it's like, I represent us all, and I have to be proper.
And the thing about it is, people are going to have different views. I was not even trying to be proper. let me put it this way. I think because I also understood that my presence on that show, it wasn't about Piers Morgan, and people will not understand that. My presence on that show was not about Piers Morgan. My presence on that show was about the Tourette's community.
Mhm.
Even though I did not take back what I said about what John Davidson said,
Mhm.
when I said what he said was racist.
Mhm.
It was racist. You don't unracialize a racist term simply
Mhm.
because it's a white man with a disability that said it. But I also understood that by adding to this prejudiced view that people with Tourette's that what they say or what they may do counts because that's how they think. So I had to now try to balance that. I mean, at some point, I let peers have it, but I had to try to balance that with it is important that people understand that actually that was wrong to say that people with this condition, what comes out of their
Mhm.
mouth means
Mhm.
that they must believe it. At the same time, saying doesn't change the fact that once it's out of their mouth, it is a racist, prejudice statement, that kind of thing.
But isn't it a form of psychological violence? The fact that the conversation became about that?
Yeah, and the fact that and all of the double standards, Sabrina. So, for instance, oh, how the Queen was so gracious. He apologized to the Queen, and I'm like, he apologized to the Queen. She's gracious. He doesn't apologize to Black people. They're ungrateful. Shouldn't he have given Black people the same, apology and courtesy?
Mhm.
But this is what happens when you get into these spaces. But I had to. I think in that moment for me, I wanted to juggle and just balance. This for me is more
You did
important.
it. You did a great job, Shola.
I think it's far more important than Piers Morgan. I mean, I've been in debates with Piers Morgan way many times, but I just thought on this occasion, this issue on this point is far more important than me trying to fall into Pierce's trap of. But I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I did call him caucastic and all of that.
I know, I heard that. But you know what I also found interesting was how upset he was by this issue. I've actually not seen him this upset
Yeah.
about anything he's covered. Like
You
for
know why?
some reason he took this issue on as his like life's work, that
You know why?
defending this white man became
Because
his thing.
Davidson was the perfect white victim. He was a perfect white victim who could say the N word, who's been empowered to say the N word with or with, especially with his disability, his condition. He is the perfect victim. So they say anybody with a disability that is white can say this word. You don't have the right to get angry at him. I mean, that's what Piers literally said on that show. He not only, I mean, he came at me worse than the other two Black people, but he came at all of us, telling us that we should go the F up. You people should get
But
over yourself.
some of the words that he was using were so passionate, and I haven't seen him that passionate talking about genocide, bombing,
Yeah.
people being burned in tents, kids being sniper shot. Like he talks about a lot of very serious issues.
Yeah.
But it's like
Because he defends that. He for the longest time he defended Israel's right to murder children. Kill. I mean, now you hear him do his thing where he's now challenging. Well, how many civilians did you kill? But in that first year, you and I know how we would go after Palestinians and pro-Palestinians. Do you support him? Do you condemn Hamas? He did that deliberately. But the reason why Davidson was the perfect victim for all of them to crowd over is because he was a white man with a disability that we're all made to understand that this disability is he has no control over it. So if he says the N-word, you people get over yourselves. And do you remember, I don't know if you watched this part where I said to Piers, why didn't you do the same to the Jews when it came to Kanye West?
I was just about to say that.
Why didn't you do the same? Oh, I did. No, you did not. You didn't tell the Jews to get over themselves. When Kanye said this about the Holocaust and he said all of that, why didn't you do that? Again, Davidson was a perfect white victim who made a racist statement. So, I mean, that's how it goes. Sabrina, to round off, because I did African time on you. I said, 30 minutes to an hour, and here we've just been So
It's
let me
because
just
it feels like I'm just chatting with my friend, you know. Like
exactly. This is exactly what we need.
next time we'll do this in person in a living room together. Next
Yeah,
time
with
I'm in
good
England.
food.
inshallah.
Good
Yeah,
food
yeah.
and drink. So let me ask you this last question. What is the truth you refuse to stop speaking, no matter the cost?
That any oppressed person who is being subjugated has the right by any means whatsoever to free themselves. The right of resistance. I'll never stop talking about that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are.
By any means necessary. Malcolm X. By any freaking means necessary. Because when the oppressor is oppressing by any means necessary, then the oppressed should be able to resist by any means necessary. Sis, wonderfully said. As I knew you would. I can't thank you enough so much for spending this Tuesday evening with us. I'm really, really grateful. And everyone, send your love to Sabreena. Sabreena, will you come back? Because
Of course.
our lovely guests to come back.
Of
I
course.
hope you do. I hope you do. I hope you do. Thank you so much. Thank you. And best of luck with your book, DI.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Buy my book, DEI Undone. Shola is in here. Dr. Shola's endorsement is in the first page. So yeah, just go to my website and get the book there. Most of what we talked about today is in this book, actually. A lot.
Excellent. And that is you're getting loads of thank yous. What's the website? Is it on Amazon?
Do not go on Amazon to buy it. Okay. It's just deiundone.com. www.deiundone.com.
So I'm just going to put that in the comment section, people, so that you can all go in there and support our sister, www.deiundone.com. Please go and show support. Thank you so much again. Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything you do, Shola. Love you loads, and hopefully, inshallah, I'll be back again.
Yes, you must do. And when next you're in London, we must hook up.
We will. We'll do this in person and we'll live stream it.
Amen. Thank you. Mwah. Have a good evening. Thank you. So everyone, that's just been a wonderful time with our sister, and in solidarity, Dr. Sabreena Gaddafi Siddiqui. She's not only beautiful and intelligent and articulate and brilliant, she's an absolute firehouse, as you heard. So if you're not already following her, who the hell are you following? Please make sure you follow her on Instagram and on X. And I'm loving the fact that we're doing this. Everyone, thank you so much for spending this Tuesday evening with me. I hope you had a good crack at the fact that Trump is having such a bad start to the week. We love to see it. And long may it continue. Yes, Sabreena is a lovely, strong woman. She is. And I find it, Nostrid, you're absolutely right. I find it to be very uplifting, and she should keep fighting. We should all keep fighting, and we should inspire each other. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, thank you so much. Let me let you go. Wow. See you later. Thursday. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe.